South Korea just quietly pulled off an energy miracle while the rest of the world was busy arguing about climate policy. On 18 August 2025, Seoul announced that its nuclear fleet is now producing electricity at a pace that leaves the government's own forecasts in the dust. Instead of the modest 2.9% annual increase that planners had penciled in, reactors cranked out 8.7% more power in the first 6 months of 2025 compared with the same period last year. That's not a rounding error. It's a threefold overshoot that has already slashed coal burn, trimmed the national import bill, and triggered a fierce new debate about how far the nuclear renaissance should go. But here's where it gets controversial. Critics warn that the grid is now so saturated with cheap atomic electricity that coal plants are being forced into involuntary hibernation, not because they're technically obsolete, but simply because the wires can't carry any more juice. Why the sudden surge? Fewer surprise outages. Maintenance windows have been shortened and better scheduled, squeezing extra gigawatt hours out of every reactor. A brand new workhorse, the 1.4 gigawatt Shin Hanul No. 2 unit, came online ahead of schedule, adding the equivalent of a small European country's entire nuclear capacity in one shot. Existing reactors are running flat out. Operators have pushed capacity factors above 90%, a figure most wind and solar farms can only dream of. And numbers tell the story. Coal-fired output plunged 16% in H1 2025, while nuclear share of total generation climbed to 31.7% last year, up from 25.9% in 2019. Over the same 5-year window, coal's slice of the pie shriveled from 40.4% to 28.1%. In plain English, every time you switch on a light in Seoul today, odds are 1 in 3 that the electron began life in an atom, not a lump of imported coal. And this is the part most people miss. South Korea isn't an outlier. It's the new normal across Asia. Japan is dusting off reactors mothballed since Fukushima. India just fired up its latest commercial unit. Even Vietnam and the Philippines are flirting with new build programs. The continent that once swore off nuclear after 2011 is now embracing it as the fastest route to both decarbonization and energy security. President Lee Jae-myung, inaugurated in June 2025, has doubled down on the technology, calling it non-negotiable for national competitiveness. His administration's target, 222.7 terawatts of nuclear generation by 2035, implying a steady 2.4% compound annual growth rate. That may sound modest, but remember the grid already beat the 2025 target by 300%. If history repeats itself, Lee's forecast could look laughably conservative by the early 2030s. The upside is impossible to ignore. Import bills for coal and LNG have tumbled, freeing up billions of dollars that can be funneled into semiconductors, batteries, and other high-tech exports. Carbon emissions are falling faster than in any other large Asian economy except perhaps China's coastal provinces. Energy security, once a geopolitical headache, has become a strategic asset. Yet the victory lap is premature. Grid operators openly admit that transmission lines in the industrial Northwest are maxed out. Reuters quotes Professor Sing-Hoon Yu of Seoul National University of Science and Technology. Plenty of coal plants are sitting idle, not by choice, but because there's no spare capacity on the transmission lines to carry more power. Translation: South Korea has built the reactors, but not the wires to move their electricity where it's needed. Renewables feel the pinch too. Wind, solar, and hydropower together supply barely 1/10 of annual demand, partly because new projects can't secure grid access. The irony is thick. Environmentalists who cheered coal's demise now find themselves fighting the same transmission bottleneck that keeps solar farms in the dark. Meanwhile, demand patterns are shifting. Since 2022, hotter summers have pushed air conditioning loads higher, yet industrial consumption has softened. Gas turbines, once expected to shoulder the evening ramp, now run only a few hours a day, dispatched solely to smooth volatility rather than to supply baseload. The Korea Power Exchange reports a daily ballet. Nuclear carries the bulk, coal idles, gas sprints for 2 peaks, and renewables squeeze in wherever wires allow. Data centers and chip fabs are the wild cards. Their electricity appetite is rising, but the Energy Ministry insists this hasn't yet forced extra LNG purchases. Skeptics wonder how long that can last if artificial intelligence workloads explode as predicted. So, is South Korea's nuclear surge a masterstroke or a risky bet? Supporters hail it as proof that rapid decarbonization and industrial competitiveness can go hand in hand. Detractors fret about stranded coal assets, grid congestion, and the long-term waste question that still lacks a permanent solution. Here's the provocative question to leave you with. If South Korea can triple its nuclear growth target without breaking stride, should other countries follow suit, even if it means sidelining renewables and writing off billions in coal infrastructure? Or is this atomic dash creating a new set of vulnerabilities that we're only beginning to see? Drop your take below. Are you team nuclear or team diversified clean mix? Let's debate.